Would you vote for a far-right party? The far right is gaining ground in Europe. In Finland, a far-right party is going to be part of the new coalition government for the first time. In Poland and Hungary, the far right is already in charge. And in Austria, the far-right party will probably get back into government again next year. And there's more. Decisions made today by these parties when they get into power might impact Gen Z their whole lives. But does Gen Z actually want these parties in power? We're going to compare two countries where young voters have completely different attitudes towards the far right. In one of them, a city mayor dressed in drag as protest against the far right, and in the other, the Pope got involved. Can you guess the countries? Strap in. We're going to start with a country with a far-right prime minister. In last year's election, Giorgia Meloni's party, Brothers of Italy, got 26% of the vote, and so became the biggest party in Italy. The party can be traced all the way back to the Second World War and has neo-fascist roots. It's known for wanting to crack down on immigration, reduce rights for same-sex couples, and be stricter on crime. So what are the reasons for Meloni's success? Let's ask an expert.
One reason is mass abstention rates. This was Italy's lowest voter turnout in the history of the Italian Republic, and turnout was particularly low in the age group of 30 and under, which historically is a group which tends to vote against the far right. Giorgia Meloni was able to present herself and her leadership as a fresh start for Italy, having remained outside of the broad coalition of parties which had supported the previous governing administration.
But how many young people are fans of Meloni? She has tried to address young people, sometimes teaming up with unlikely helpers, like the Pope. Together, they have encouraged young people to stop being so selfish and have more children instead of pets. Thanks for the tip. That's the Pope taken care of. We'll come to the drag queen later. Meloni led a big campaign on social media in the hope of reaching young people. She has way more followers than her competitors. So, did it work?
I did not vote for the Brothers of Italy in the last Italian election. And I believe this party can only value me because I'm an Italian woman that could potentially calm their low birth rate anxiety. I tend to monitor Brothers of Italy's social media accounts quite a lot. I end up feeling extremely scared at how they infuse scientific data with emotion to express their success.
Fratelli d'Italia is denial of rights and discrimination against marginalized groups. I think their success was also due to an effective campaign compared to that of other parties. Giorgia Meloni is the one who succeeds in giving a well-rounded representation.
My worldviews don't align with the main ideas that the party represents and the main narratives put forward by Giorgia Meloni. I think that the anti-immigration policies and discourses adopted by the party are very damaging for Italian society.
So no, it didn't really work. The data shows that Gen Z voted way less for Meloni's party than other age groups, even less than millennials. But why exactly?
The key reason is dissatisfaction with the quality of discussion on topics that Gen Z tends to consider important. So for example, the environment, technological innovations, gender equality, career opportunities and social justice were given minimal consideration by Brothers of Italy and its coalition partners.
So we asked ourselves, is it always the case? Does Gen Z always vote less for the far right than the average in the population? Well, you can't really say that. In one particular country in Scandinavia that's often seen as very progressive, the youngest voters are actually more favourable towards the far right party. And it's Sweden. This country has seen the really sudden rise of a far-right party that's recently been busy criticising drag queens. So the Vice Mayor of Stockholm dressed as one as a protest against intolerance. In the elections last year, the far-right Sweden Democrats got 20.5% of the vote. They also want to cut immigration, and they blame Sweden's increasing crime on immigrants. The Sweden Democrats were founded around 30 years ago, and their early meetings featured Nazi salutes. The party was pretty much sidelined until it got enough votes to enter the parliament for the first time in 2010. Suddenly, last year, it became the second biggest party in Sweden. So how did the party get here?
Because the shame factor was gone. There's been a complete kind of cut-off of the Sweden Democrats. Nobody would cooperate with them. It was then became something you could speak about over a dinner. Sweden Democrats is a one-policy party. They are an anti-migration party. But of course, they have a rhetoric that says, we support your job. We support the little person out there in the village who has lost so much to globalization or who feels left behind in a world it doesn't understand anymore.
Some of the Sweden Democrats' messaging apparently resonated with young people in Sweden, particularly those voting for the very first time. 22% of 18 to 21-year-olds voted for the party, more than older age groups. In many countries, young people support far-right parties much less than older voters. So why is it so different in Sweden?
There is a difference in Sweden that they're actually, those who vote more to the left are young, but we're talking about the girls. Those who voted for the Sweden Democrats are still predominantly young men, and young girls are doing better than young men. They have higher grades in school, and I think there is a little bit young man left behind syndrome in young men, especially from rural Sweden, where they don't have an education. They don't remember what the party was like in the late 80s when they were still young neo-Nazis with swastika on their uniform, like clothes. If you were born and you're a first-time voter in 2022, then you were a little kid already when Sweden Democrat joined the parliament and became more of a mainstream party.
Aside from the drag queen protests and unexpected collaborations with the Pope, the success of far-right parties is really concerning to a lot of people. We asked our experts what kind of factors help far-right parties succeed, and why is their popularity so different among young people?
The far-right have seen success recently because they've been able to stir up and create crises, which means that they can present themselves as the protectors of their country.
In Europe, we've seen many different parties enter into coalition government with the far-right, and we've also seen many so-called mainstream politicians express similar exclusionary positions to the far-right, and they therefore legitimize what they're saying.
Let's sum it up. We've all been hearing so much about how far-right parties are getting bigger vote shares and how more and more people in democratic countries are choosing to vote for them. So is this trend even a problem? Well, yes, because they use racist discourse that encourages hate speech, and they offer simplistic approaches to complex problems. And sometimes it's more about promoting their own ideology than about actually solving stuff. And as a result of all of that, they are a danger to democracy. Why do you think some young people vote for the far right, and does it concern you? Let us know in the comments.